Married men of Reddit. What moment with your future wife made you think, yup, I'm asking this girl to marry me? Story 1. The day she took off work to help me go through a dumpster. I had accidentally thrown my keys in the trash while cleaning out my car. Edit. We found them 2 hours later. Story 2. Things were going really well, and I was saying to myself, if this keeps up, I think next summer I'll pop the question. Then, my mother had a stroke. We were all sitting in the waiting area outside the ICU because only 2 people were allowed in at a time. It was my now wife's birthday and a Wednesday, and she didn't hesitate to take the day off to sit with me and my family. I went to visit my father at home, and she came with me. Her Italian instincts kicked it, and she brought a load of groceries and a lasagna with her. My father was a mess at the hospital, and it fell on me and my siblings to speak with the doctors and make plans. I would get home and pour myself some bourbon. She made me dinner and just sat with me while I silently sobbed. It wasn't about how great we were when things were good. It was about how perfect she was when things were bad. I bought the ring 2 months later. Edit. Forgot. This all happened just before Christmas. Since my mother was still in the hospital Christmas Eve, I got a last-minute reservation to my father's favorite restaurant. GF was with her family, but we got to the table to find a note that she had called ahead to buy us 2 bottles of wine. Story 3. When she was meeting my parents, she put together an outfit and asked, "What do you think? Does this say, 'Hey parents, look at me, I'm awesome,' or 'I slept with your son on the first date'?" Story 4. When I first told my father that I was dating someone new, he jokingly asked, "What's her name? What does she do? What's her bra size?" I told her about it, hoping to prepare her for his sense of humor, and she thought it was hilarious. The first time they met, she introduced herself by saying, "Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm in college and I'm a B-cup." My father was horrified, my mother was laughing hysterically, and I was in love. Story 5. I was 18 and just gotten out of a dental appointment where 2 of my wisdom teeth were pulled out. I was drooling, stains of blood all over my shirt, and it was the summertime. My GF at the time was 16, took what little money she had from her allowance, bought me a box of ice cream, and biked 25 minutes just to deliver that box of ice cream and see how I was doing. With blood stains all over, she still gave me that look of love and planted a kiss on me. That was almost 20 years ago, and I still can't imagine having a happier life without her in it. Story 6. In my first week as licensed as a paramedic, I had a 2-year-old die on me. When I got off work, I drove to my girlfriend's place and told her about my day. I was pretty numb at the time, trying to process this kid's death despite all my efforts. I laid down on her couch, and she just wrapped her arms around me and laid with me for 3-4 hours as I tried to process. She didn't push or ask lots of questions, just laid there quietly and held me. I slowly was able to talk my way through it, and then the tears started. She cried with me. I felt the whole world was so dark and ugly, but she was my island of light. Started saving up for a ring that week, and asked her to marry me 6 months later. In September, we celebrate our 5-year wedding anniversary. I'm still a paramedic, and she's still my island. Story 7. It was our first date. It was the last day of classes before Thanksgiving break. She was supposed to drive home after class. It was just a coffee date that stretched out for several hours. It was just comfortable. Conversation flowed. I wasn't worried about saying anything dumb or silly. We were completely ourselves. It culminated in a shy kiss in her car before she left to drive home. Her mom knew why she was late, just by her mood. I went back to my apartment and talked to my roommate. I told him there was something special about this girl. We'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary this summer. Story 8. This may be a bit unusual, but the way she could toss an insult around. I tend to tease playfully, and she could always toss banter right back. We ended up insulting each other so much that my friend had to assure his girlfriend that we were only kidding and didn't hate each other. It was great. Story 9. On or about our second date, my future spouse was on call for her medical job. Her beeper went off, dates the story, and we rushed to the hospital where I got to watch her handle a trauma case. I saw confidence, expertise, calmness under pressure, kindness, and caring, and a few other desired traits shine forth, and with that added to her package, I knew she was someone I could respect for the rest of my life. We celebrate our 24th anniversary this fall. Story 10. She opened her fridge, and I saw she had organized her jelly by the visible light spectrum. After we got married, she confessed that she did that on accident and had no idea what I had been talking about, but just rolled with it because she could tell she scored points. I kept her anyway. Edit. To those saying, just say color, the visible light spectrum is a specific order. If I had said organized by color, that says nothing about the order, which is what impressed me. This is not me bragging about being smart. This is elementary school stuff, people. Crack a book. Story 11. We were young. I was moving across the country to be with her at the time, and she got our apartment all ready before I got there. Our bathroom was really small. She had purchased this blue bathroom rug for the floor, and because the rug was too large, she carefully cut out these notches for the sink stand and the front of the toilet bowl so the carpet would fit perfectly flat. She cut the bathroom rug perfectly. I knew she had to be mine. Story 12. Getting married next month. She came over 2 weeks into us dating with a Batman costume for my cat. She put put my cat in the costume, and then chased the cat around the apartment singing, "Da nu 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 bat cat." There was never a doubt in my mind after that. Story 13. She insisted on cooking me steak on one of our first few dates. It was the best steak I'd ever had. I ended up drunkenly confessing my love soon afterward. For the steaks, of course. Story 14. I've been married just over a week, so I've been telling this story a lot lately. We were 3 days into a month-long backpacking trip in Southeast Asia. We're staying in a seedy hotel in Bangkok, and she gets a bad case of food poisoning. It's coming out of both ends for 24 hours. I, of course, am now designated as her nurse. I'm refilling her water bottle, getting her soup from the restaurant outside, keeping her company, and, most importantly, emptying the trash bin she keeps puking into. After one trip to empty her vomit bucket, I come back into the room and she's asleep. I looked at her and thought to myself, I'm not even bothered by this. I'd do anything for her. This is the woman I'm going to marry. She's a disgusting fairy, but she's my disgusting fairy. Zero regrets. Edit. For all those asking, we had a Jewish wedding, so no vows. I did get to break the out of a glass, though. Story 15. I've posted this before, but since you asked, when I was a young lad, I had bought a pair of swords. Now, for some reason, I still had them. But when my now wife agreed to come over my place, I decided to hide them in a storage closet. Because why would any grown man have these? So, a while down the line, she was looking for something in said closet when I heard, "What the? You have swords? Why are you hiding these?" I was prepared to be mocked mercilessly, when instead, she handed me one and then started swinging. It was about that time that I realized I was going to marry her. Story 16. Have to post this for my dad. My parents met 39 years ago last Friday, in a lineup for a movie. My mom's friend knew my dad from another friend and introduced them. My dad was known as a wild guy, and my mom was seriously considering becoming a nun. Naturally, they started dating. Couple months later, my mom found a lump in her breast. My dad's aunt died of breast cancer very young, and it just freaked him out, I guess. My mother had the lump removed, and thank God it was benign, but my dad had already rushed out and bought an engagement ring. He always claims he knew from the moment he saw her, but a couple of glasses of wine and he will tell you that he saw what life could be like without her, and it wasn't worth living. They never fight, they always work together, and my mom's heart still skips a beat when he comes home from work. Story 17. I left my favorite CD in her car, Dream Theater's Scenes from a Memory. She wasn't a huge fan, but put up with it whenever I listened. One day, I was on the phone with her while she was driving, and we said goodbye, but she forgot to hang up. I waited a few seconds and I heard her singing along. Story 18. I stepped on a girl's foot at a festival. I turned and apologized sincerely, and the girl accepted my apology. Her drunk friend, though, decided to start screaming at me and threatened to assault me, saying, "I'm a girl, you can't hit back." When she shoved me, my future wife came out of nowhere and punched her so hard her shoe came off. I said, "Yup, I'm marrying this woman." Edit. My wife isn't the one whose foot I stepped on. Should have worded it better. She and I had been casually dating 8 months, and she was off looking for our friends when I stepped on the girl's foot. Story 19. I don't even care how cliche it is. I knew the first moment I saw her. It was this super weird feeling of intuition that I'd never felt before, and that never went away. It was like, yep, you're going to marry her someday. In the meantime, you should figure yourself out because you're kind of a giant tool right now. We didn't even date until summer 5 years later, dated other people, and had our own lives. And during that whole time, she was just this little seed waiting patiently in the back of my subconsciousness. Marriage has been at times euphoric and at times agonizing. Right now, it's better than ever. Our second baby will be born next week. Story 20. My best friend and I took forever to realize that we each were infatuated with one another. Embarrassingly so. Finally, we started dating, and we moved in together. Everything was perfect. I've never been big on the idea of marriage, but laying in bed together one night, I realized that the thought of not having her in my life was unbearable, and I didn't want to ever let her slip away. We had only been together for about 6 weeks at that point, but I knew I wanted her to be mine. She died a couple weeks ago, and I never got to ask her to marry me. Edit. Wow. I never expected nor really desired this much attention. I just wanted to vent a little while I was on break at work. Honestly, I have some anxiety about all of this attention. I'll try and get back to everyone. To answer the most common question, she died in a car accident. I don't want to post a lot of detail publicly, but if anyone really gives a EI, PM and ask and I'll share more. It's been really hard to deal with this. I cannot put into words how important she was to me. For someone like myself, if the username didn't give it away, I don't particularly enjoy most people. She was my absolute favorite, the best person in my life. The joy we had for each other was immeasurable, and everyone who knew us together knew we were soulmates. That's where all the feelings of pointlessness are stemming from. Anyway, I could ramble on forever. I'll try and get some replies knocked out. Thank you for listening to a random internet stranger try and express his pain. Edit 2. Keep your religion and blessings to yourself. It only serves to make me angry. All other messages are welcome. Story 21. It actually happened without much fanfare. We were in bed one night before going to sleep, talking about our relationship and our future. We had already bought a house together and had a dog, and we had talked about marriage in the past, but it wasn't a huge priority for either of us. Talking about how cool it would be to have our wedding be like a reunion with a lot of old friends made it seem really appealing, and we knew that we both would be staying together for pretty much the rest of our lives. She ended up just saying it in the end. "So do you want to?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I do. It makes sense." And everything happened from there. Completely and wholly unromantic. Yay for us. We're now coming up on 8 years of marriage with 2 kids. Story 22. I actually have a picture I took of her the moment I realized it. Nothing in particular happened. We had been dating for a while and went on vacation together. When we arrived at the resort, we were sitting on the veranda having a drink and it just hit me. This is the girl I'm going to marry. So I immediately took her picture. The look on her face is sort of like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" I realize this is buried and nobody will see it and it's not a cool or funny story, but I wanted to put in my answer to be archived on the interwebs forever. I just love that girl so much. Edit. You people are awesome. I posted this in the morning and I just checked my phone and saw all the upvotes and I had to go find the pic. It took some looking. It was on an old backup drive. The pic is from 2005. Here it is. My beautiful girl. This is on the veranda of the St. Regis Martival on Mallorca. At the time, it was just the Martival. Looking at this reminds me she was wearing my sweatshirt because it was a little chilly in the late afternoon. It wasn't, but she gets cold when it isn't at least 75 F. She is looking at the guidebook and map. Now that I look at the picture after all these years, the late afternoon golden light, in retrospect, might have been conspiring to influence me. Something about her at that very moment made it clear that she was the girl I was going to spend the rest of my life with. It's been 10 wonderful years. Thank you, great people, for encouraging me to dig this out and relive this moment. Story 23. For the most part, it was the fact that the very day we started dating, she was staying at my house. Not quite living there, just hanging out forever till that turned into living with me. Never thought too much about it till a year later, and realized that we have never spent a day away from each other. Married September 2006, and still going strong. Story 24. When we were having a conversation and she kept making me laugh. Her sense of humor is incredible. It also helped when I was taking her out on an early date, and she said, "You're spending too much money on me." She knew money was very tight for me. We were in college. Our 34th anniversary is this Saturday. Story 25. My wife and I were good friends before we became romantically involved. She was one of the guys. And it wasn't unusual to roughhouse a little. This sounds sexual in retrospect, but it really wasn't at the time. You know that thing you used to do to your sister when you were like 12, where you'd pin her down and threaten to spit on her by letting the spit hang out of your mouth, then sucking it back up at the last minute? Dear God, I hope I'm not the only one who did this. Well, I did that to my friend now wife, except I waited too long and I accidentally spit directly in her eye. Instead of being furious like a normal person, she busted out laughing. We've been married 12 years. Story 26. On our 4th date, we got a cheap pizza and went to a park in October up north. We fell asleep and woke up freezing at 2 in the morning. Instead of getting up and leaving, we just held each other and went back asleep for another 2 hours. I knew from that moment I was going to marry this girl. Story 27. We had a long-distance relationship. We lived 3 to 4 hours away from each other the entire time we dated. We had met at a concert and traded emails and MSN info. Classic. We emailed and chatted every day, sometimes for hours. We poured our hearts out about our fears and dreams. I'd go visit her every other weekend, and she'd come once in a while my way. About 3 or 4 months into doing this, I'm at home, chilling at home, playing some game in my room. My dad calls up the stairs that I got a package in the mail. So I, confused, come walking down the stairs. And there she was. She came up to visit as a surprise. Without thinking, I instinctively ran to her and hugged her, and lifted her, and spun her a bit. And I felt in my heart a wholeness. Like holding her filled in something I was missing. I knew then that I never would let her go, metaphorically speaking. Been married over 9 years, and I still get that feeling when I hug and kiss her. Story 28. I got mad and yelled at her for some stupid because I had been in a toxic relationship prior to meeting her, and I thought that what couples did, scream and argue. I expected her to yell back at me, but she just stared at me for a moment and asked if I was done. I said I was, and she proceeded to explain to me that people who love one another do not treat each other that way. We can disagree with one another, but there's no reason to be mean. If we're going to be together, please don't be mean to me again. That was 26 years ago. We've been married 25 years. Edit. Thank you guys so much for the kind replies and messages, but I have to confess something. I'm still in, just not to her. AP. Story 29. Like our 4th date, At her house, the episode of The Simpsons is on where they're hiding the town's trash everywhere. Without any prompting or ever talking about the show, Doug, we both simultaneously said, "Stash our trash. Beautify Bluffington." An absolutely inconsequential line in a mediocre show neither of us had seen in over a decade. We boned. Story 30. Short version. She literally saved my life. Less short version. I'm from Michigan. Back in December 2014, I was in Delaware for a business trip. I ended up getting food poisoning, which brought on DKA. For those non-diabetes, basically your blood gets poisoned and your body tries to fight it off, which proves to be futile. I was vomiting constantly and kept drifting in and out of consciousness. My wife, then girlfriend, called me about 20 or 30 times before I finally answered. The only thing I could force myself to say was, "Hi, baby. I'm really sick." Then I blacked out again. What seemed like 5 minutes passed, which was actually about 12, 13 hours, when I heard a banging on my hotel room door. I heard my girlfriend's voice yelling, "It's me! Let me in!" I screamed as loud as I could, "Get in here! Get in here!" Then I blacked out. I woke up in the hospital a day later. I found out that when I didn't answer the door, she ran downstairs, got a key, came up, and called an ambulance. The ambulance said that they would be there in 30 minutes. She said, "That's not soon enough." She put me into a rolling computer chair and pushed me to the elevator and out to her car, threw my near-lifeless body in the back seat, and drove me to the hospital. When all was said and done, my body had a blood sugar level of 1,400. My normal range is 110, 140, and my white blood cell count was around 3,000. I'm not 100% about this number, but I know it was high. My wife sat with me for 6 days in the hospital, sleeping in the chair next to me, left to eat but came right back. She didn't leave my side. I should also mention that this was only 4 months after we started dating. However, we had been friends for a few years before this. I found out later that if she would have waited for the ambulance, I would not have made it. She literally saved my life. She sacrificed her time, risked getting fired and failing classes to drive 13 hours from Michigan to Delaware to take care of me. Once it all hit me as to what she had done, I was completely speechless and realized that if this girl is willing to do something like this for me, I must be pretty fucking special to her. I made it a priority once I recovered to ask her mother and father for their blessing, which they both gave me. I married her in May 2016. One of the scariest things to ever happen to me ended up showing me my girlfriend's devotion and love for me. We just hit our 1-year anniversary, and although we're a young couple, we are still kicking and going strong. Story 31. My husband tells me he knew when he casually asked me this question on our second date. "What time is it?" Correct answer, and the answer I gave? "It's howdy doody time." Married 24 years in August. Story 32. It wasn't like a thunderbolt thing, but right after we first banged, she got up and walked naked across the room to the bathroom, and I'll always remember how good it felt laying there and how this was definitely the hottest woman who had ever walked naked across my room. I thought then, I could marry this girl. Of course, it wasn't just the hotness. Doesn't hurt that she's a financial genius, has 2 degrees, a great-paying job, and is the most patient person I know. What she's doing wasting her life with me, I'll never know, lol, but I'm grateful. Story 33. Engaged. Our first date lasted 12 hours because we just couldn't stop talking. Our second date was supposed to be just dinner, and it lasted almost 2 days. She drove away after the second date, and I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. I was ecstatic to find out she felt the same. Story 34. Hot redhead on St. Patrick's Day, drinking Guinness out of a pitcher. That's the girl for me. Introduced myself, spent the rest of the day with her, stumbled to a buddy's who lived close to the bar, told him I met the girl I was going to marry. Been 20 plus years. Story 35. No one is going to see this, but oh well, this isn't flashy. It's not going to make an amazing Hollywood movie. The moment I knew I was going to ask her to marry me was the moment I accepted that I could live without her. I just didn't want to. It was that moment that I recognized being with her was a mutual choice, not a dependency. I had the self-awareness to know I could lead a happy life. But this woman made everything happier. I am one of the most genuinely lucky people I know. I am not the wealthiest, best-looking, or most popular, but I deeply, deeply love my wife. She is the center of my universe. It's not because she's given me this Hollywood fairy tale of what marriage is supposed to be like. It's because she's given me something real, something tangible, and something I can fight for. Through the ups and downs, the arguments and laughter, the sickness and health, I realize that I may not always like her, but I deeply love her. And that love is not based on one thing, but all things. And it's amazing when you see the woman you love day after day, year after year, and you just keep seeing the same person you first met. You not. Every single day, I have this revelation. No matter how amazing or frustrating of a day I have, every day I would ask her to marry me, and every day I would marry her again. Wife, if you ever read this, here is another confession I make before Reddit. The internet is forever, as is my love for you. Update just because tonight I went home and hugged my wife, and I held on as long as she let me. She smiled, swatted my butt and said, "Good game." Then she started humming while holding our kid. Humming is how my wife expresses a moment of bliss. To all the people that took the time to read my post, to those kind enough to comment, I humbly offer you my deepest thanks. You, people of Reddit, gave my wife some happiness today. You own that. You made my day. Thank you. Story 36. We had gone on 2 or 3 dates before I asked her to be my girlfriend, and I knew the instant she said yes that we would be married one day. Her eyes just lit up like nothing else when I told her I wanted to make things official. It has felt like I can read her mind since the day I met her. I know when she's happy, sad, upset, tired, annoyed, etc. I knew a few days before she asked me to move in with her that she was going to ask. We have been in sync pretty constantly, and I'm incredibly lucky to be married to someone with whom I'm so in tune. We dated for 3 years, but I knew from day one that we were going to be married. I don't really believe in soulmates or anything too mystical. However, if there was anyone who could change my mind about that, it's my wife. Story 37. I was divorced going on my 3rd year, had dated several women, but this one girl I only had been dating 10 days when I blurted out asking her to marry me. She said yes. It's been 32 years now, and we're still very much in love. Story 38. I lived in a half-decent apartment in Hell's Kitchen in NYC. The place had a tub that was massively stained when I moved in. Every chick I dated tried to get that stain out. This was in the 90s when I was young and single in NYC, so that means plenty of women took a shot at it. My future wife came out of the bathroom one day and nonchalantly said, "Clean the tub." I ran into the bathroom and couldn't believe my eyes. That was my sword in the stone. How did you do it? Meh. I don't give up. Edit. I've now asked her how she did it. She claims it was nothing more than Ajax and bleach. It was orange, so we're thinking an iron stain. Sorry there isn't a more magical answer, but I guess the truth is her resolve dissolves all else. Story 39. We danced together at her high school graduation party. We had been out a few times previous, but were not dating at the time. I was invited by another girl's mother. She was hosting the party. That was 38 years ago. We've been married 30 years. We dated for 8 years. Story 40. Just happened to me about 2 weeks ago. No lie, I was washing my hands in the bathroom and it hit me out of left field. I knew right then and there I wanted to marry her. Got the ring yesterday. Wish me luck. Edit. She said yes. Story 41. I was driving us home from a golf tournament for couples. We stopped to get some lunch, and as I was driving, she handed me a perfectly unwrapped burger that I could eat one-handed while she sat cross-legged next to me. Not sure why, but I just felt so loved, nurtured, and happy in that moment. Now that's sort of our thing. We love to travel, and no matter where we stop to eat, she will always make sure I am able to eat in a convenient way. Something about watching the road while your now wife sets a napkin on your leg, puts the fries face up in the cup holder, and gets the burger ready to go. Been together 10 years, married for 2. Story 42. I was sitting in a sand volleyball court at 3 a.m. with a close friend, best man at my wedding actually, having a deep conversation when I realized it wasn't that I could imagine spending the rest of my life with my SO, but that I couldn't imagine not spending the rest of my life with her. Also, we had each dropped 2 hits of LSD hours before this epiphany. Story 43. The moment I knew that my wife was the one for me, we were having some pizza, and she asked me if the next time we did this we could get double bacon on the pizza. Never letting her go. Story 44. He personality was as strong as mine. I'm very intense, very driven, and it's hard for people to want to flat out call me on bullshit I do. First time I met her, that's exactly what she did. I found it immensely attractive. It's a sign of confidence and self-esteem. As stupid as it sounds, I wanted to marry her after that first interaction. Societally, we like to pretend that love is accepting all behaviors with open arms, but that's destructive and unhealthy. My wife speaks the truth, man. She helps me be better. Married 1 year as of last Sunday. Story 45. While making Rice Krispie treats, my future wife snuck a spoonful of the melted marshmallow and made me a fresh peanut butter and marshmallow fluff sandwich without me noticing. When I took the first bite, I knew I'd never find anyone better. Story 46. I can't tell you the exact moment, but very soon, like 4 weeks after we started dating, we were already really good friends before, I realized, yup, I'll never let her go. This was 7 years ago. I'm not married yet since we are both finishing our apprenticeships, but it is 100% clear for us that the marriage is coming, and I already have the engagement plan. Edit. I love all you guys. Dinens ja. An ideen will speel romantics F. Story 47. Now wife was DJing a fundraiser for her work at a bowling alley. I'm her sidekick, setting things up and taking requests from folks. So we were snacking on some fries, and she starts choking, coughing. Next thing I know, she starts to puke, and I instantly throw out my hands and catch the majority of her vomit. She looked me in the eyes with the most sincere look of shock. She was stunned that I loved her enough to catch her vomit to keep her from making a scene at her work party. Been together 9 years, married for one. 5. Thanks to the Supreme Court. Story 48. I have never been in a fight in my life, always trying to disperse hostility via conversation or humor. I have been ready to fight, not necessarily wanting to fight, but 100% ready for one, 2 times in my entire life. Both were when I thought my fiancé, now wife, was in danger. May seem stupid, but that's because I can't emphasize how little I want to fight. All I cared for was her safety. This was a big deal and a big realization for me that this one was the one. Story 49. The very first time I laid eyes on her. We married after going steady for 15 months and remained married for 56 years until her death 3 years ago. Blue-eyed blonde and a 10 in my book. Miss her terribly. Story 50. On our first date, we went to a movie theater that served drinks to your chair. Alamo Drafthouse. When they asked what we would like to drink, she ordered a pitcher of Sierra Nevada. And I said, good choice, we can share. Before I could finish my sentence, she said, oh, well, this one's mine, we can get you one too. So we did. And since we've been sharing beers, collecting beers, and visiting breweries ever since, I always tell people that ask me when I knew she was the one, and my response is the first date. After she ordered a full pitcher of IPA for herself, that's when I found out I had met my soulmate. Story 51. Once I got flu, she stood by me day and night until I recovered. I got to see her nurturing side for the first time. I was already in love with her. This sealed the deal. Story 52. Both my wife and I have a dark sense of humor. One day I heard her say, with a totally blank expression, that person's face makes me wish we still had public executions. That joke was what really sold me on her. Plus, on the day I first asked her out, I said, I asked this time, so if we get married, you have to propose. A weird thing to say, I know, but it fits our personalities. Sure enough, 5 years of dating later, she got down on one knee, took out a ring, and proposed to me. It helps to be with someone who is your best friend in the world. Story 53. Probably too late, but whatever. I had just left a job I hated because I was leaving for grad school in my desired field. I only had a couple of months left chilling at home and doing some volunteer work before leaving. I told myself, there is no reason to get involved with any women. There will be smart girls aplenty in grad school, and you do not want to get into some kind of long-distance relationship. So, of course, we met in late May, first date in June. Things were going well enough that I asked if she'd be willing to road trip 22 hours with me to school, and she offered to pay for her own one-way ticket back home. We were locked in a car together for 2 days, and when I dropped her off at the airport in Florida, I still wanted to hang out with her. That's when I knew. 2 years of long-distance dating, many flights on budget airlines, but we celebrated our first wedding anniversary this past spring. I got into a doctorate program last fall. She made that road trip with me for that too. But no need to buy the return ticket that time. Story 54. It was a blind date. I was 21 and she was 18. I took her to play miniature golf. At one point, as I bent over to pick up my golf ball, she put her club between her legs and pantomimed that it was A and started thrusting it against my while yelling, I'm horny. Totally broke the ice. We've been married for 16 years now and she's just as crazy, loud, and hilarious. Our kids don't even know how to handle her. She's also gotten more beautiful with age. Story 55. We had a fight and she was so chill about it. I was in the wrong and was just in a mood. Right away, she talked to me in a mellow voice and explained why I made her feel shitty and that I should take 2 days of radio silence to think about it. None of this, you should know what is wrong. Even though I told you nothing is wrong, and none of that yelling and or talking my ear off for hours, and awesomely giving me the time I need to figure my out. I was like, yes, I can live with this. TLDR. Rough waters are truer tests of leadership. In calm water, every ship has a good captain. Story 56. When she sent me the grossest Snapchat she could make of her face possible. We do it to each other all the time now. It makes the office much more tolerable.